Wilmington, Delaware, a thriving, vibrant city with a rich history and a bright future. A city that in recent years has experienced unprecedented growth in its historic neighborhoods, downtown business district, and riverfront. A city that is truly in the middle of it all. Wilmington's future wasn't always so bright. Like most American cities, Wilmington suffered as a result of the great population shift to the suburbs after World War II. Wilmington faced the same neglect, stagnation, and blight that crippled dozens of other cities along the eastern seaboard. Wilmington's crisis came to a head in the late 1960s with a period of racial unrest and eventually rioting. In the middle of this challenging and chaotic time, a bus arrived at Wilmington's Greyhound station in August of 1966, carrying a 24-year-old Vista volunteer from the small Midwestern town of Fostoria, Ohio. Little did anyone suspect, this transplant from Ohio would shepherd the city through the tumultuous 1960s and the hard-luck 1970s and help build a prosperous, ecologically sustainable city that is the envy of every municipality in the Mid-Atlantic region and beyond. James M. Baker was born in 1942 to parents John and Alpha Baker. Then known by his middle name, Michael, Baker was one of 7 children. Michael and his older brother John Jr. were raised by his grandmother following his father's death. In high school, Baker established himself as a star player on his high school basketball team. After graduation, Baker enlisted in the U.S. Air Force, and upon his honorable discharge in 1966, first dedicated himself to public service as a Vista volunteer. At the time, few suspected that the thin, unassuming Baker would quickly transform from social worker to community leader to elected official, eventually becoming Wilmington's first ever 3-term mayor.
Well, I first met Jim Baker in 1969. He was a Vista volunteer, and his service area was West Center City. And we were what was called then community youth workers. And it was our task to go out to mingle with the community. And our goal was for those that were unemployed to try to see that they had gotten jobs. For those that wanted to go to school, whether it was to get a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree, was to look at the possibilities for them and make the necessary contacts. Jim was always out there, always concerned about the community. And if you needed something done and you contacted Jim Baker, for the most part it was done.
When Jim first came to Wilmington, I would say, and he was young, enthusiastic, tall and skinny, had a sense of right and wrong, had a sense of what racial discrimination did to people, not just the terms racial discrimination, and a sense of humanitarianism. And interestingly enough, a sense of organization and how to get things done. That was key. But he was quiet, very quiet, not a loud person. But when he opened his mouth, it was almost like, what's that commercial? When so-and-so talks, everybody listens. That was Jim. Yeah.
Baker's political career began in 1972 when he was elected to serve on Wilmington City Council as a district councilman. In 1984, Baker became the first African American to be elected council president, a position he held until his election as mayor in 2001, making him the longest-serving council president in Wilmington's history.
His leadership was really unique because most people in those kinds of leadership positions try to forge alliances with all the members of council, try to do something out of the ordinary to make them feel comfortable with him. Baker's goal was really, I've got a goal, and I think the goal would benefit council, and I would like for you to come along. But if you choose not to, then that's on you. And so his was a different kind of leadership style. And for the first term that I served on city council, Baker pretty much had 3 or 4 people that were always giving him hell for whatever the reason. And I just happened to be one of those, but it was Arthur Scott, Joe White, Loretta Walsh. All of us were a part of that new breed of members that went on city council in 1984. And that group had 6 new members. And Baker had to deal with 6 people that had no understanding of council or of governance. And he pretty much taught us the ropes.
As council president, one of the most important things I think he did was to be the helpmate to the mayor, to help the mayor. He was very clear that the mayor was the executive of the city, and he was always willing to work with the mayor to get the mayor's initiatives accomplished. I think that speaks volumes for him. But he also was able to change some of the tone of the government to make sure that council was held in higher esteem, that they were considered really a co-equal branch of the government. So he held his own in those matters and always pressed for not for the greater glory of Jim Baker, but for the really for the prominence and the role of the council as a body.
During his years in City Council, Mayor Baker led the effort to revitalize Wilmington's historic riverfront. It was Jim Baker who would first see the full potential of what at the time was a derelict, neglected industrial zone.
Well, I remember when I was in college and I had to do a profile on a public servant or somebody in public office. And I went to Jim Baker's office, and he had just been elected council president at the time. And I said to him, I said, well, where do you see this city going? And he pointed right over at the riverfront and said, I would like to see that with residents, businesses, just a bluster of activity, people doing things, sort of like what you see in Baltimore Harbor. So that was then, and that was 28 years ago. So now you look at the riverfront and you see the footprint that he's left there. He not only does that for the riverfront, but he also has left an impact on neighborhoods. There's a lot of housing projects that have gone up in the northeast, east side. Anywhere in the city you walk, you can see his imprint.
I think Mayor Baker deserves a vast amount of credit for the wonderful things that we've seen at the riverfront. He's the first person that I was aware of, in my experience, that raised the possibility of using the riverfront as an asset. And he raised that issue in the mid-'70s, when it was within his council district. And he continued that interest, and given any opportunity, he would bring it up as part of the future of the city of Wilmington. Now, obviously there are other people that deserve credit for implementing it and making decisions that would bring it along, but I look to him as the initial inspiration.
The riverfront was just one of Mayor Baker's countless accomplishments when he was City Council president. Baker would also create the city's rainy day budget reserve to safeguard against fiscal crises. He also introduced tax exemptions for senior residents. Baker's reign as council president also saw some of the innovative programs that would later characterize his historic term as mayor.
To me, he's left some lasting impacts, not only for council president and mayor. I mean, Jim was responsible for the creation of WEDCO, Wilmington Economic Development Corporation, which offers small loans to small businesses within the city of Wilmington. That's something that will go on forever. That's something that will continue to impact the city of Wilmington.
In 2000, James Baker left the presidency of City Council after successfully running for mayor of the city of Wilmington. Upon taking office, Baker immediately began a period of unprecedented innovation in city government, such as the nationally replicated vacant property registration program. Steadfast in his belief that neighborhoods in the rest of Wilmington should be attractive and free from neglect and blight, Mayor Baker created the Vacant Property Registration Program in 2003. It was his way of reducing the number of long-standing vacant housing properties that often become unattractive neighborhood nuisances. The program, managed by the Department of Licenses and Inspections, assesses an escalating fee on property owners who fail to keep their buildings occupied and in good working order. Since its inception, the program has shrunk the number of vacant properties in Wilmington by more than 50% and generated more than $109 million in rehabilitation permits. The The Vacant Property Registration Program has been honored by the U.S. Conference of Mayors and Harvard University's Ash Institute for its originality and effectiveness. In fact, the program has been adopted by municipalities across the country, including Boston, Massachusetts.
Vacant property registration fee has been very impactful. What we thought we were doing something very simple for the city of Wilmington has become a national trend for other cities to adopt it. There are various cities throughout the United States that have adopted our legislation word for word. So, and not only is that, we've actually did presentations in Miami at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And a lot of cities contact us regarding our program and want to implement it similar to what we're doing.
Mayor Baker continued his efforts to beautify city neighborhoods by creating the Instant Ticketing Program, an initiative that enabled the city to be more proactive in citing sanitation problems that disturb the quality of life in Wilmington's neighborhoods.
And we've seen an actually decrease in a lot of illegal dumping, a lot of reduced high grass and weeds. Now, have we gotten rid of it totally? Probably not. But we've seen an impact in terms of a reduction in some of these issues that are quality of life issues that people have told us are a problem for the city of Wilmington.
There's been a lot of innovation. You can look at things like the instant ticketing. There are people who hate instant ticketing in the city, but instant ticketing came about because we had code enforcement inspectors and lawyers bogged down in innumerable hearings and everything on basic issues. So we, the folks actually in L&I came up with a quicker, easier way to get basic compliance to keep neighborhoods cleaner. Real basic stuff.
Realizing that home ownership is a stabilizing force in city neighborhoods, Mayor Baker has worked with his Department of Real Estate and Housing to stabilize entire areas of the city by replacing entire blocks of decrepit eyesore properties. In their place are new, vibrant, and affordable communities such as Speakman Place, Prestwick, and the village of Eastlake.
There's been a lot of work, obviously, under Mayor Baker in terms of addressing housing issues. I think the number for me that best reflects that is the fact that about 1 in every 5 to 1 in every 6 housing units in the city have been either newly constructed or rehabilitated during the Baker administration. And so when you think about that number, to reach that kind of a level, you really have to touch all areas of the city. I mean, literally, it's like going to every 6th house on a block has been impacted. And I think it speaks well for the future of the city because, Wilmington is an old city with an old housing stock. And so the mayor's commitment to really address not only new construction, new housing needs, but existing housing to make sure that they're fit for generations to come is really set, I think, a great foundation for future mayors in terms of recognizing the importance of housing, in terms of the vitality of the city, how potential residents look at a city in terms of wanting to live there. That's one of the first things they'll look at is the housing conditions, housing stock, and what's available. So I really commend Mayor Baker in terms of his efforts and the leadership that he's provided in that area.
Perhaps some of the greatest challenges facing a city as old as Wilmington reside within the Public Works Department, notably the city's aging sewer infrastructure, which features an antiquated combined sewer overflow system. Under this outdated system, sewage and stormwater share the same pipes, which means that heavy precipitation can result in untreated sewage flowing directly into our city's waterways.
Well, the mayor took a very strong position and really looked to us to come up with concrete solutions within a very concrete time frame. And that was very inspiring in many ways because it was clear that he was willing to back up his words with strong support in terms of dollars. And so we looked at a number of different ways of dealing with this problem, and we came up with a very innovative way to deal with the issue that brought us very quickly to solutions that other cities are still struggling with and can expect to struggle with over the next 20 to 30 years.
Mayor Baker also successfully introduced Wilmington's groundbreaking incentive-based recycling program, the first single-stream curbside recycling program in the state of Delaware. This remarkable greening initiative has diverted over 30% of the city of Wilmington's waste from the landfill into recycling.
The recycling idea and the way it was executed and the way it was presented and the way the mayor got behind it, I thought was, again, emblematic of the mayor's willingness to look at things that are outside the box, as they say, and embrace those kinds of ideas. And it's obviously been a very interesting journey in terms of where we are with recycling and where we hope to be. I think I see this, again, we're in the infancy of recycling right now, in my view. This is something that's going to grow over time, and we have to be patient with it, but we have it in place. It's solidly entrenched now as part of the city's DNA, and the mayor obviously gets tremendous credit for embracing it, backing it, moving it forward.
Mayor Baker understands that you can't build a better city without recognizing the need for art, entertainment, and culture. After all, as Mayor Baker often explains, cities are meant to be fun. That's why the mayor has been a steadfast champion of such long-standing traditions as the annual DuPont Clifford Brown Jazz Festival. Mayor Baker showed his adventurous side when he supported the creation of the Fringe Wilmington Festival, Delaware's only multiple-day celebration of unconventional and experimental performance, visual, and cinematic arts. But perhaps Mayor Baker's greatest contribution to the arts was his creation of the Wilmington Children's Chorus, a city-sponsored initiative that provides city youth with an opportunity to develop and share their vocal talents as Wilmington's singing ambassadors.
I frequently joke that when Mayor Baker has an idea, he always writes it down on the back of an envelope. Whenever Mayor Baker walked into my office with an envelope in hand, I knew that he wasn't bringing me the mail, but he was bringing me one of his ideas. And that was just the way he delivered his idea about the Children's Chorus. He walked into my office one day and said, "Tina, I think this community would benefit from a community children's chorus, not just a group of children who would sing, but who would sing well with excellence, and also would learn about what it is that they were singing and learn about different cultures through their singing." Mayor Baker understands that the arts are the glue that hold people together, and that we need to start with our young people. And he is, a huge fan of children and of how arts can transform lives. And so the Children's Chorus has indeed been one of those ideas that Mayor Baker has come up with that has just been a transformative component of the city of Wilmington's revitalization.
To say that Mayor Baker has had a tremendous impact on the quality of life in his adopted city would be a gross understatement. Yet Mayor Baker himself would insist that he could not have done it alone. Instead, he shares credit with the outstanding department directors he chose to help him advance his ideas as part of his cabinet. Mayor Baker assembled a wonderful team. The team knows the mayor well, got to know the mayor even better in our years in office, and if you think about it, most of them stayed together. We've got a lot of the same folks who are with us at the very beginning, here at the end, and they've done a wonderful job. They're so creative. They're unique in their own way, and the mayor demands that, and they understood it and they delivered. Perhaps there is no better way to appreciate Jim Baker than through the eyes of those who know him best.
If I want to be perfectly honest with you as to how I see that this mayor has changed, this mayor came in with Vista. This mayor ran for city council. This mayor has never lost an election. This mayor served as city council president, making sure all the undergirdings with all the different mayors, making sure that everything still ran smoothly. No, the city didn't go bankrupt. The city continued to grow. The city got the waterfront, the whole east side, northeast side, with all the housing changes and that kind of thing. The city stayed solid. The mayor comes in for an unprecedented 3-time winner. That's not an accident. And it's not due to the genius of strategy of campaigning. You are talking about someone whom you may disagree with because of the way he says things, but he has given his life to this city.
I just want to personally wish him well after serving 40 years in both city council and in the mayor's seat. No other person, to my knowledge, has ever served that long in terms of a combination of city council and being mayor. And the mere fact, for me, he has always been a friend. He personally would always inquire about my children as they were growing up, and he was always there to be supportive of them. But if you ever really needed Jim, you could always go to him. And so for me, this is a fond farewell as the mayor of the city, but most likely I'll still see him around, and I still have a great deal of respect for him.
One thing about Jim Baker that it really impresses me, and you know, he's not from Wilmington, but he has so much passion about this city that, you know, it astounds me on how much he has given of himself to a city that, you know, really he's taken ownership of. This is Jim Baker's city to me.
I think Mayor Baker's impact has been very significant. His contributions as a legislator, I think were significant. They weren't all flashy, but the initiatives that he put forward were well thought out and were very timely for the city, and it kept us on a very good track. When he ascended to the position of mayor, he had a vision that was very important. It was a real vision of the changes that needed to be made to move the city forward. And he focused on those visions and has implemented a substantial part of them. And I believe that the economic development credit that he should get is major. And he got us through a very difficult time period of adjustment. And we still have challenges. But I believe that as he leaves his position, he leaves it in at a level at which a good bit of what he started can be continued.
And he loves this city, no doubt about it. He loves this city, and even though the quote is the Wilmington a place to be somebody, it should say Wilmington, the place that Jim Baker has made. So I'm looking in this camera to say to you once again, thank you, Jim. Job well done, my friend. Thank you.
I think the real person behind the Jim Baker persona is someone who is actually very kind, very forgiving, very understanding, and very smart. The one thing that I don't think people understand as much about the mayor is how well read he is, how focused he is, how much he knows about a lot of different subjects. He's a generalist, but he knows a whole lot about a lot of different things. And he had always had very good common sense and maybe political sense with a small p on how to approach issues. So I don't think he gets enough credit for his wisdom, his overall understanding of how things work, his knowledge of human nature, and his wisdom for how he's actually approached his job. I think he's, because of that public persona, he's underestimated a bit.
I was approached by a number of people back in 2001 asking me, why would you take on the job of communications director for someone like Jim Baker? And of course, they're speaking to the mayor's ability to express himself in sometimes very unique ways. But you know, I looked at it and I said to myself, you know, if you're going to do communications for Jim Baker, you don't try to control Jim Baker. He's Jim Baker. You know what's in his heart, you know what's in his head, you know what motivates him each day, which is to make this a better city. And so if you know that, sure, you understand that at times you're going to have to modify some of what Jim Baker says. One of my favorite lines is, and the mayor knows this, is what the mayor intended to say, and we had fun with that. But Jim Baker is unique. When the chapter of history of the city of Wilmington is written of the Baker era, we will remember this mayor for his leadership, for his vision, for his work each and every day to make lives better for Wilmingtonians. And yes, we will remember Jim Baker for his unique way of expressing himself. Oh, thanks for the memories. 12 years as our mayor and 26 in a council chair. Wilmington will not be quite the same when you're not there. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memories. Oh, budget battles galore and council members to ignore. You know you dealt with the heat by making your enemies fresh meat. How lovely it was.
You know I don't like dumbness, but I have to put up with it day after day and get used to it.
They ought to all go to hell and forget it.
I'll fight you.
Why the hell not?
If you're dumb, you're dumb. I can't help that. I didn't make you dumb. I don't mind fighting. You're an idiot.
They're about as useful as a daggone flea on an elephant.
You daggone right.
Nobody wants to see the hotel because the government's going to put money into it. Your tax dollars is going to support a hotel.
No.
What's the idiot that ever came up with the idea the government's not supposed to help?
You made yourself dumb.
We got plenty of fools.
And like my grandmother used to say, a young fool turns into an old fool.
Only a fool would think that.
I cuss people out and call them idiots and stupid. Of course I do. Dumb.
Idiot.
Idiot, stupid.
Fool.
Dumb.
Fool.
Fool. Idiot.
We got plenty of fools.
Oh, many's the time that they cursed you, and many's the time you cursed back. Oh well, it was swell while it lasted. Gridiron had fun, and no harm done. And thanks for the memories. Some citizens want more, but others aren't so sure. You might have been a headache, but you never were a bore. So thank you so much. So thank you so much.